The massive elephant's trunk swayed dangerously close to 8-year-old Emma's face as the crowd screamed in terror. Margaret Whitmore, the HOA president, had deliberately pushed the child toward the sanctuary's most unpredictable animal during the neighborhood field trip. What Margaret didn't know was that Emma's father, Detective Deputy Commissioner Michael Chen, was watching from the shadows, and he'd been building a case against her corrupt HOA empire for months. Today, she'd crossed the line from petty tyranny to attempted murder. And Michael Chen never forgot the morning sun cast long shadows across the pristine sidewalks of Willowbrook Estates as Detective Deputy Commissioner Michael Chen adjusted his review mirror, watching his 8-year-old daughter Emma bounce excitedly in the backseat. Her backpack, covered in elephant patches, sat beside her lunchbox decorated with safari animals. "Daddy, do you think we'll see baby elephants today?" Emma's voice carried the pure excitement that only a child could muster at 7 in the morning. Michael smiled, catching her eyes in the mirror. "I'm sure we will, sweetheart. The wildlife sanctuary has a whole family of them." As they pulled into the Willowbrook Elementary parking lot, Michael's phone buzzed with a text from his partner. Detective Rodriguez, board meeting footage came in. "Your HOA queen is dirty as hell. Wire fraud, embezzlement, the works. We've got her." Michael's grip tightened on the steering wheel. For 6 months, he'd been quietly investigating Margaret Whitmore, the iron-fisted president of the Willowbrook Estates Homeowners Association. What started as curiosity about her lavish lifestyle on a retiree's income had evolved into a full-scale investigation into financial crimes that could put her away for decades. "Daddy." Emma's voice pulled him back to the present. "Sorry, princess. Just work stuff." He pocketed his phone and got out to help her with her backpack. "Remember what we talked about during field trips? Stay with my buddy, listen to the teachers, and don't wander off," Emma recited dutifully. "That's my girl." The school bus was already loading when they arrived at the designated pickup area. Parents clustered in small groups, some looking as tired as Michael felt. The investigation had consumed his nights for weeks, but seeing Emma's excitement made it all worthwhile. She deserved to grow up in a community where petty tyrants couldn't terrorize families with impunity. Well. If it isn't our neighborhood's finest." Michael turned to see Margaret Whitmore approaching, her perfectly coiffed silver hair catching the morning light. At 62, she carried herself with the bearing of someone who'd never been told no, her designer tracksuit and tennis shoes screaming money in a way that made Michael's detective instincts tingle. "Mrs. Whitmore," Michael nodded politely, though every muscle in his body tensed. "Chaperoning today?" "Of course. Someone needs to ensure these children receive proper guidance." Her pale blue eyes fixed on Emma with an intensity that made Michael's paternal instincts flare. "Though I must say, I'm surprised to see you here, Deputy Commissioner. Don't you have more important things to do than babysit?" The emphasis on his title carried a mocking edge that didn't go unnoticed. Michael had dealt with enough criminals to recognize when someone was probing for weaknesses. "Nothing's more important than my daughter's safety," Michael replied evenly. Margaret's smile was razor-thin. "How refreshing. Though I do hope you understand that on school grounds, we follow my rules. The HOA has very specific guidelines about parent behavior during sanctioned events." Before Michael could respond, Emma tugged on his sleeve. "Daddy, can I go sit with Jenny?" "Of course, sweetheart." Michael watched his daughter bound toward the bus where her best friend was waving from a window. When he turned back, Margaret was studying him with the calculating gaze of a predator sizing up prey. "She's a spirited child," Margaret observed. "Spirited children sometimes need a firmer guidance." The threat was subtle but unmistakable. Michael's jaw clenched. "Is there something you'd like to say to me directly, Mrs. Whitmore?" "Not at all. Simply making conversation." Margaret's smile never wavered. "Though I must admit, I've been meaning to discuss your recent activities with the board. There have been some concerns about your conduct in the neighborhood." She knows. The realization hit Michael like a physical blow. Somehow, Margaret had discovered his investigation. The question was how much she knew and what she planned to do about it. "I'm not sure what you mean," Michael said carefully. "Oh. I think you do. Margaret's voice dropped to a whisper. You see, Deputy Commissioner, I've been watching you just as closely as you've been watching me. The difference is, I actually know how to cover my tracks. The bus driver called for final boarding, and parents began saying their goodbyes. Michael kissed Emma's forehead and watched her climb the steps, his mind racing. If Margaret suspected the investigation, she was capable of anything. The woman had destroyed families over lawn violations and pool regulations. What would she do to protect herself from federal charges? Have a wonderful day, Deputy Commissioner, Margaret called out as she boarded the bus. I'm sure it will. Be educational. Michael stood in the parking lot long after the bus disappeared, his phone already dialing Rodriguez. We've got a problem, he said when his partner answered. She knows. How sure are you? Completely. And Emma's on that bus with her. Jesus, Mike. Want me to follow? Michael was already walking toward his unmarked car. No, I'll handle it. But have backup ready. If Margaret's willing to threaten a cop, she's more dangerous than we thought. The drive to Riverside Wildlife Sanctuary took 45 minutes, giving Michael time to think. Margaret Whitmore had ruled Willowbrook Estates with an iron fist for 8 years, turning the HOA into her personal kingdom. She'd foreclosed on families, destroyed marriages with her arbitrary rules, and driven decent people from their homes. The financial crimes were just the tip of the iceberg. But threatening Emma? That changed everything. Michael arrived at the sanctuary 30 minutes before the bus, using his credentials to gain early access. The facility sprawled across 200 acres of carefully maintained habitats, with the elephant enclosure being the crown jewel. The massive compound housed 6 African elephants, including a bull named Temba who'd been rescued from a circus, and had a documented history of aggression toward humans. Deputy Commissioner Chen. A woman in khaki approached him near the elephant viewing area. I'm Dr. Sarah Martinez, the sanctuary director. I wasn't expecting law enforcement today. Michael showed his badge. Routine security check. My daughter's school is visiting today, and I wanted to ensure everything's safe. Dr. Martinez nodded, though her expression suggested she found the request unusual. Of course. Though I should mention, we've had some concerns about the group's chaperone. A Mrs. Whitmore called yesterday asking very specific questions about our safety protocols. She seemed particularly interested in which barriers could be bypassed and how close visitors could get to the animals. Ice formed in Michael's stomach. What kind of questions? She wanted to know about access points, emergency procedures, and whether there were any areas where someone could get past the safety barriers. I told her absolutely not, but her persistence was troubling. Show me, Michael said. Dr. Martinez led him to the elephant enclosure, a massive habitat surrounded by a 12-foot fence with additional safety barriers. The viewing area was designed to keep visitors at least 20 feet from the fence, with clear sight lines for supervision. The elephants are generally docile, Dr. Martinez explained, but Temba can be unpredictable. He's shown aggression toward humans before, especially children. That's why we have such strict safety protocols. Michael studied the layout, his cop instincts cataloging every detail. The emergency exits, the staff positions, the blind spots where someone could act without being immediately noticed. If Margaret was planning something, this would be the perfect location. I need to ask you not to let Mrs. Whitmore out of your sight today, Michael said. If she tries to bypass any safety measures or gets too close to the animals, stop her immediately. Dr. Martinez frowned. Deputy Commissioner, is there something specific I should know about? Before Michael could answer, the distant rumble of a school bus engine reached them. Through the trees, Michael could see the yellow vehicle navigating the sanctuary's winding access road. Just watch her, Michael said. And keep the kids away from Temba. The bus pulled into the parking area, and Michael positioned himself near the elephant enclosure where he could observe without being seen. The children poured out in a chaos of excitement and chatter, their voices echoing across the sanctuary grounds. Emma was among the first off the bus, her elephant backpack bouncing as she ran toward the viewing area with Jenny. Michael's heart swelled with pride and protectiveness as he watched her point excitedly at the distant elephants. Margaret emerged. Last, her authoritative presence immediately organizing the chaos. She divided the children into groups, assigned buddy systems, and began herding them toward the various exhibits. To any observer, she appeared to be the perfect chaperone, responsible, organized, and caring. But Michael noticed things others missed. The way Margaret's eyes kept drifting to Emma. How she maneuvered herself to be near his daughter's group. The calculator. The elephant enclosure stretched like a battlefield around Michael as he faced down 7 tons of agitated muscle and bone. Temba's massive head swayed 3 feet above Emma, who lay crumpled against the dirt wall, her left arm clearly broken and her elephant backpack torn from the fall. "Easy, boy," Michael whispered, his service weapon trained on the animal's center mass. He'd never wanted to hurt an innocent creature, but his daughter's life hung in the balance. Nobody wants to do this the hard way. Temba's trunk snaked downward, exploring the strange new scent in his territory. Emma whimpered as the massive appendage brushed against her hair, and Michael felt his finger tighten on the trigger. "Daddy." Emma's voice was barely a whisper. "I'm scared." "I know, princess. Just stay very still. Daddy's going to get you out of here." Behind him, chaos erupted. Dr. Martinez was screaming orders into her radio while sanctuary staff scrambled with tranquilizer equipment. Parents pressed against the outer barrier, their children's cries mixing with adult shouts of panic and disbelief. And through it all, Margaret Whitmore stood perfectly still, her pale blue eyes drinking in the scene with sick satisfaction. "Sir." Dr. Martinez called out. "Don't shoot. We have tranquilizers coming." "How long?" Michael demanded, never taking his eyes off Temba. 2 minutes, maybe 3. Michael's jaw clenched. Emma didn't have 3 minutes. The elephant's agitation was increasing, his ears flapping more violently as the crowd noise rose. Any second now, those massive feet could step forward and crush his daughter like an insect. "Emma, I need you to listen to me very carefully," Michael said, his voice carrying the calm authority he'd used to talk down suicidal jumpers and armed suspects. "Remember what you learned about elephants in all those books you read." Emma's tear-filled eyes met his. They remember everything." "That's right. And what else?" "They are scared of loud noises and sudden movements." "Good girl. Now. I'm going to count to 3, and when I say go, you're going to roll toward the fence as fast as you can. Don't look back, don't hesitate. Just roll. Can you do that?" Emma nodded, her small body trembling but her eyes showing the same determination Michael had seen in her mother. Temba's trunk swayed closer, and Michael could smell the animal's musky scent mixed with dust and fear. The elephant's small eyes seemed to study him with an intelligence that was both magnificent and terrifying. "1," Michael said softly. Margaret's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "Oh, this is perfect," she called out, her tone conversational. Deputy Commissioner Chen, breaking about 15 federal regulations by discharging a firearm in a protected animal sanctuary. "I'm sure the media will love this story." Michael's blood ran cold. Even now, even with Emma's life hanging in the balance, the woman was thinking about leverage. 2. Temba took a step forward, his massive foot landing inches from Emma's prone form. The girl whimpered but held perfectly still, her father's training overriding her terror. "Of course," Margaret continued, her voice growing louder, "there might be other ways to resolve this situation. Ways that don't involve dead elephants and ruined careers." 3, Michael whispered. "Go." Emma rolled toward the fence with desperate speed, her broken arm tucked against her body as she used her good hand to propel herself across the dusty ground. Temba's massive head swung toward the movement, his trunk reaching out to investigate. Michael fired a single shot into the air, the sharp crack echoing across the enclosure like thunder. Temba reared back, his trunk coiling defensively as he trumpeted his alarm. The sound was deafening, a primal roar that seemed to shake the very ground. "Now!" Michael shouted to the sanctuary staff. "Hit him now." 2 tranquilizer darts flew through the air, striking Temba in the shoulder. The elephant stumbled, his massive form swaying as the drugs took effect. Within seconds, he collapsed onto his side, his breathing deep and steady. Michael scooped Emma into his arms, feeling her small body shake with sobs and shock. Her left Arm was definitely broken and she had scrapes and bruises across her face, but she was alive. "I've got you, princess," he whispered, carrying her toward the fence where paramedics were already waiting. "You're safe now." But as he lifted Emma over the barrier, Michael's eyes found Margaret Whitmore. She stood apart from the crowd, her expression unreadable. When their eyes met, she smiled, a cold, calculating expression that promised this was far from over. "Deputy Commissioner," she called out as EMTs began examining Emma. "Perhaps we should talk privately." Michael kissed his daughter's forehead as the paramedics loaded her onto a stretcher. "Daddy has to handle some business, sweetheart. I'll be right behind you to the hospital. Promise?" Emma's voice was small and scared. "Promise." As the ambulance pulled away, Michael turned to face Margaret. The other parents were ushering their children back to the bus, their faces pale with shock. The sanctuary staff were dealing with the aftermath of the tranquilizer deployment. In the space of 10 minutes, a routine field trip had become a nightmare. "You tried to kill my daughter," Michael said, his voice deadly quiet. "I did no such thing," Margaret replied, her tone perfectly reasonable. "There was an unfortunate accident. Children can be so clumsy, especially when they don't listen to safety instructions. I saw you push her. Did you? Or did you see a concerned chaperone trying to prevent a child from falling?" Margaret's smile was razor-sharp. "Because that's what 30 witnesses will testify they saw. A tragic accident that could have been prevented if certain parents had been more attentive." Michael felt his hands clench into fists. "You calculated bitch." "Careful, Deputy Commissioner. That sounds dangerously close to harassment of a senior citizen. I'm sure your department has policies about that sort of thing." Dr. Martinez approached, her face drawn with concern. "Deputy Commissioner, I need to ask what happened here for our incident report." Margaret stepped forward before Michael could respond. "Dr. Martinez, I'm so sorry about this terrible accident. Little Emma was so excited about the elephants that she climbed onto the barrier before I could stop her. She slipped and fell. It all happened so fast." "That's not," Michael began. "Of course, the Deputy Commissioner is understandably upset," Margaret continued smoothly. "Any parent would be. But we mustn't let emotion cloud our judgment about what actually occurred." Dr. Martinez looked between them, clearly sensing the undercurrent of tension. "I'll need to review the security footage before filing my report." "Of course," Margaret agreed. "Though I should mention that the angle might be somewhat obscured by the crowd. These things often are." Michael's phone buzzed with a text from Rodriguez, hospital called. "Emma's stable. Broken arm, mild concussion, nothing that won't heal." "What the hell happened?" "I need to get to the hospital," Michael said. "Of course you do," Margaret replied. "But before you go, we really should discuss your recent activities. I'd hate for this unfortunate incident to be compounded by other problems." Michael stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "If you think what happened today gives you leverage over me, you're badly mistaken. I'm going to destroy you." Margaret's smile widened. "Oh, I don't think so. You see, Deputy Commissioner, I've been preparing for this conversation for weeks. Did you really think I didn't know about your little investigation? About the surveillance? The financial records you've been pulling?" Michael's blood ran cold. "How? I have friends in many places, including your department." Margaret pulled out her phone, showing him a series of text messages. "Your partner Rodriguez has been very helpful, actually. All those late-night updates about your progress. The evidence you've been gathering. I've been reading every word." The betrayal hit Michael like a physical blow. Rodriguez had been his partner for 6 years. They'd saved each other's lives, trusted each other with their darkest secrets. And now, you're lying. Am I? How else would I have known to ask Dr. Martinez about the security blind spots? How else would I have known exactly when to make my move?" Margaret's eyes glittered with malicious triumph. "Your investigation is over, Deputy Commissioner. And if you try to pursue it, I'll make sure the whole world knows how you endangered dozens of children today by bringing a loaded weapon into a school field trip. Michael's mind raced. If Rodriguez had betrayed him, then Margaret had access to everything: witness statements, financial records, even the federal task force involvement. 6 months of work, destroyed by someone he trusted with his life. What do you want? He asked. Simple. You're going to close your investigation. You're going to transfer to another precinct, preferably in another state. And you're going to sell your house in Willowbrook Estates and move your family far away from here. And if I refuse? Margaret's smile turned predatory. Then I'll make sure everyone knows that Deputy Commissioner Michael Chen has been conducting an illegal surveillance operation against a senior citizen. I'll claim harassment, stalking, abuse of police power. Your career will be over, and your daughter will grow up knowing that her father threw away everything because he couldn't handle being told to follow HOA regulations. Michael felt the world tilting around him. Everything he'd worked for, everything he'd built, was crumbling. But worse than that was the knowledge that Emma had been hurt because of his investigation. If he'd never started digging. The fluorescent lights of the Internal Affairs conference room hummed overhead as Michael sat across from Captain Morrison and Lieutenant Sarah Walsh, his badge and service weapon arranged on the table between them like evidence in a murder trial. 48 hours had passed since the sanctuary incident, and the walls were closing in exactly as Margaret had predicted. 15 years, Captain Morrison said, his weathered face showing the strain of the situation. 15 years of exemplary service, and now this. Michael remained silent, his hands folded calmly in his lap. Through the window, he could see the parking lot where news vans had been circling since morning. Margaret's media campaign was in full swing. Unauthorized surveillance of a civilian, Lieutenant Walsh read from her file. Misuse of department resources. Abuse of police databases. And now we have witness statements claiming you threatened Mrs. Whitmore with a firearm during a school field trip. The weapon was discharged to protect my daughter from a 7-ton elephant, Michael replied evenly. I'd do it again. That's not the point, Chen, Morrison snapped. The point is that you've been conducting a rogue investigation for 6 months. You've been pulling financial records, running surveillance, and building a case without authorization or oversight. Because Margaret Whitmore is a criminal who's been stealing from families for 8 years. Alleged criminal, Walsh corrected. And even if she was, proper procedure would have been to refer the matter to the appropriate authorities, not launch your own personal vendetta. Michael's jaw tightened. It stopped being about procedure when she pushed my daughter into that elephant enclosure. According to 30 witnesses, Morrison said, including your partner Rodriguez, Mrs. Whitmore was trying to prevent your daughter from falling. The only person who claims otherwise is you. The betrayal still stung, but Michael had expected it. Rodriguez had been feeding information to Margaret for weeks, positioning himself as the voice of reason when Michael's obsession finally exploded. The perfect inside man. Where's Rodriguez now? Michael asked. In the field, handling real police work instead of harassing senior citizens. Morrison's voice carried the weight of disappointment. Mike, help me understand this. You're a good cop. You've got commendations, community support, a clean record. Why throw it all away for a property dispute? Because it's not about property disputes. It's about a pattern of criminal behavior that's destroyed families and stolen millions of dollars. Then why not follow protocol? Why not build a proper case? Michael leaned forward. Because the system failed. I tried working within it for months. I filed reports, requested investigations, followed every proper channel. And nothing happened. So I decided to gather evidence myself. Evidence obtained through illegal means, Walsh pointed out. Which means it's worthless in court. Is it? Michael smiled grimly. Or is it just worthless to you? Morrison frowned. What's that supposed to mean? Before Michael could answer, there was a knock on the conference room door. A young officer entered, looking nervous. Captain, there are federal agents here to see you. They say it's about the Chen investigation. Morrison and Walsh exchanged glances. Federal agents. FBI Financial Crimes Division. They've requested a meeting with Deputy Commissioner Chen. Michael kept his expression neutral, but inside he felt a surge of satisfaction. Agent Kim had moved faster than he'd expected. Send. The Min, Morrison said. Agent Sarah Kim entered first, her professional demeanor immediately commanding the room's attention. Behind her came Agent Marcus Torres, a tall man with the kind of presence that suggested serious federal authority. Captain Morrison, Lieutenant Walsh, Kim said, showing her credentials. I'm Agent Kim, this is Agent Torres. We need to discuss the Michael Chen investigation. I'm not sure what federal interest there could be in a local disciplinary matter, Morrison replied carefully. The federal interest, Torres said, is that Deputy Commissioner Chen has been working with our office for 6 months on a RICO investigation involving wire fraud, tax evasion, and racketeering. The silence that followed was deafening. Walsh's file slipped from her hands and Morrison's face went pale. That's impossible, Morrison said. Chen's been conducting unauthorized surveillance. At our request, Kim replied smoothly. Deputy Commissioner Chen approached us 6 months ago with evidence of a criminal enterprise operating within the Willowbrook Estates Homeowners Association. We authorized him to continue his investigation as a federal informant. Michael watched. The color drained from Morrison's face. The beautiful lie was being delivered with perfect federal authority, and there was nothing Morrison could do to question it without looking like he was obstructing a federal investigation. Why wasn't I notified? Morrison demanded. Because we had reason to believe the criminal organization had infiltrated local law enforcement, Torres explained. We needed to keep the operation compartmentalized. Walsh looked at Michael with new understanding. The surveillance, the financial records. All part of an authorized federal investigation, Kim confirmed. Deputy Commissioner Chen has been operating under our direct supervision. Morrison's hands shook slightly as he reached for his coffee. What about the incident at the sanctuary? The allegations against him. Margaret Whitmore's attempt to murder a federal informant's child to obstruct justice. Torres's voice carried the weight of absolute authority. We take that very seriously. Murder. Walsh's voice cracked. The reports said it was an accident. The reports were wrong, Kim said. We have video evidence showing Mrs. Whitmore deliberately pushing Emma Chen into the elephant enclosure. She's been under surveillance for weeks. Michael felt a moment of confusion. Video evidence. But then he realized what Kim was doing. She was creating a plausible cover story that would allow him to continue his work while giving the FBI legal grounds to act. Jesus Christ, Morrison whispered. If this gets out. It won't, Torres assured him. Not if everyone follows proper protocol from this point forward. Deputy Commissioner Chen will be returning to active duty immediately. Any disciplinary action against him will be suspended pending the conclusion of our investigation. And Rodriguez? Michael asked quietly. Kim's expression darkened. Detective Rodriguez is no longer part of this investigation. We have reason to believe he's been compromised. Morrison looked like he was going to be sick. How compromised? He's been feeding information to Margaret Whitmore for weeks, Torres explained. We have recordings of their conversations, financial records showing payments to offshore accounts, the works. The room fell silent again. Michael felt a grim satisfaction at seeing Morrison's faith in Rodriguez crumble. The captain had always favored Rodriguez, considered him the more stable partner. What happens now? Walsh asked. Now, Kim said, we execute arrest warrants. Margaret Whitmore, 3 members of her HOA board, and Detective Rodriguez will be taken into custody within the hour. Rodriguez is here, Morrison said numbly. He's in the building. We know, Torres replied. We've been tracking his movements. He's currently in interrogation room 2, interviewing a witness about an unrelated case. Michael stood up. I'd like to be there when you arrest him. Absolutely not, Kim said firmly. You're emotionally compromised. Let us handle this. He betrayed me. He sold out my daughter for whatever Margaret was paying him. Which is exactly Why you can't be involved in his arrest, Torres explained. We need this to be clean, by the book. No room for defense attorneys to claim personal vendettas. Michael nodded reluctantly. As much as he wanted to see Rodriguez's face when the cuffs went on, he knew Torres was right. Captain, Kim said, we'll need complete cooperation from your department. No one talks to the media, no one discusses the case outside of official channels. This is a federal matter now. Morrison nodded weakly. Of course. Whatever you need. Good. Deputy Commissioner Chen, you'll need to be debriefed about your informant activities. Can you come with us? Of course. As they left the conference room, Michael caught a glimpse of the newsroom through the window. Margaret was holding court with 3 different news crews, her silver hair perfect and her expression one of righteous indignation. She was probably describing the rogue cop who'd been harassing her, the dangerous man who'd brought a gun to a children's field trip. She had no idea that her world was about to collapse. Agent Kim, Michael said quietly as they walked down the corridor, the video evidence you mentioned doesn't exist, Kim replied. Yet. But it will by the time we need it. Security footage has a way of being enhanced during federal investigations. Michael felt a chill. You're manufacturing evidence. I'm creating a legal framework. That allows us to pursue justice, Kim corrected. Margaret Whitmore is guilty of everything we are going to charge her with. The fact that your original investigation was technically illegal doesn't change that. But if this comes out, it won't, Torres said firmly. Because everyone involved understands that sometimes the system needs help to work properly. They reached the elevator, and Michael could hear raised voices from the direction of the interrogation rooms. Rodriguez was about to have a very bad day. There's something else, Kim said as the elevator doors closed. We've been monitoring Margaret's communications. Willowbrook Estates Community Center buzzed with tension as residents filed into the main hall, their faces reflecting a mixture of curiosity, concern, and carefully concealed fear. Margaret Whitmore had called the emergency meeting for 7 p.m., promising to reveal disturbing truths about the rogue police officer who'd been terrorizing their peaceful community. Michael watched from the FBI surveillance van parked across the street, his eyes fixed on the building's entrance through high-powered optics. Agent Kim sat beside him, coordinating the operation through her headset while Agent Torres positioned teams around the perimeter. Target is approaching, came a voice through the radio. Black Mercedes, license plate matches. Margaret's car glided into the parking lot like a shark approaching a feeding frenzy. She emerged from the driver's seat in a perfectly tailored navy suit, her silver hair gleaming under the parking lot lights. She carried herself with the absolute confidence of someone who believed she held all the winning cards. She has no idea what's waiting for her, Kim murmured, adjusting her earpiece. Michael's phone buzzed with another text from Margaret. Last chance, Deputy Commissioner. Call me before the meeting starts, or Emma's future becomes very uncertain. She's still threatening my daughter, Michael said, showing Kim the message. Good. Every threat is another federal charge. Kim spoke into her headset. All units, target has entered the building. Commence final positioning. Through the community center's large windows, Michael could see Margaret taking her position at the front of the packed hall. She'd arranged the space like a courtroom, with herself as both judge and prosecutor. A projector screen displayed the heading, Protecting Our Community, the Truth About Police Harassment. How many people are in there? Michael asked. 150, maybe more, Torres replied through the radio. Looks like she's got a full house. Michael recognized many of the faces in the crowd, neighbors he'd barbecued with, parents from Emma's school, people who'd once considered him a friend. Margaret had turned them all into her audience for his public destruction. Beginning recording, Kim announced. We'll need everything documented for the prosecution. Margaret called the meeting to order, her voice carrying clearly through the FBI's audio equipment. Friends and neighbors, thank you for coming on such short notice. What I'm about to share with you is deeply disturbing, but you have a right to know the truth about the danger living in our midst. She clicked a remote, and the projection screen filled with Michael's police department photo. A collective murmur. ran through the crowd. Deputy Commissioner Michael Chen has been conducting an illegal surveillance operation against me and other members of our community for over 6 months. He has violated our privacy, abused his authority, and endangered our children. Michael watched his neighbors' faces change, saw suspicion and fear replace familiarity. Margaret was a master manipulator, turning his investigation into evidence of his own criminality. 2 days ago, Margaret continued, his obsession escalated to violence. During a sanctioned school field trip, Deputy Commissioner Chen brought a loaded weapon into a children's event and discharged it in the presence of dozens of innocent children. The crowd's reaction was immediate and visceral. Parents gasped, several people stood up in anger, and Michael could hear his name being cursed by people who'd once invited him to neighborhood cookouts. "This is hard to watch," Kim said quietly. "She's good," Michael admitted grudgingly. "Every word is technically true, just stripped of context." Margaret clicked to the next slide, showing a photo of Emma on the ground in the elephant enclosure. Michael's hands clenched into fists at the sight of his daughter's terrified face. This is what happens when Deputy Commissioner Chen's dangerous obsession goes unchecked. His own daughter pays the price for his inability to follow rules and respect authority. "That lying bitch," Michael whispered. "She's about to be a lying bitch in federal custody," Kim replied. "Torres, are we ready? All teams in position. Waiting for your signal." Margaret was hitting her stride now, her voice rising with righteous indignation. But the danger doesn't stop there. Deputy Commissioner Chen has been accessing confidential financial records, conducting unauthorized surveillance, and building what can only be described as a stalking file on law-abiding citizens. She clicked to another slide showing printed emails, bank statements, and surveillance photos, all part of Michael's investigation, but presented as evidence of his criminality. "These are federal crimes," Margaret announced. "Wire fraud, invasion of privacy, abuse of police authority." And yet, somehow, Deputy Commissioner Chen remains on active duty. The question we must ask ourselves is, how many other families will suffer before this dangerous man is stopped? The crowd was fully engaged now, their anger palpable even from across the street. Margaret had transformed Michael from protector to predator, from father to threat. "She's turning them into a mob," Torres observed. "Let her," Kim replied. "The more she talks, the deeper she digs her own grave." Margaret moved to her closing argument, her voice taking on the tone of a prosecutor delivering a death blow. "That's why I've taken the extraordinary step of filing formal complaints with the police department, the district attorney's office, and the FBI. Deputy Commissioner Chen must be held accountable for his crimes against our community." A hand shot up from the audience. "What can we do to protect ourselves?" "I'm glad you asked," Margaret smiled. "I've prepared a petition demanding Deputy Commissioner Chen's immediate suspension and arrest. I encourage every family to sign it. Our children's safety depends on it." Michael watched as people lined up to sign the petition, their faces filled with the kind of righteous anger that Margaret had spent years cultivating. She turned his investigation into his persecution and his neighbors into his enemies. "It's time," Kim said into her headset. "All units, execute." The community center's front doors burst open as FBI agents flooded the building. The crowd's anger instantly transformed into confusion and panic as armed federal agents took positions throughout the hall. "Nobody move." Torres's voice boomed through a bullhorn. "This is the FBI. Everyone remain seated." Margaret's face went pale, but she maintained her composure. "What is the meaning of this?" "This is a private HOA meeting." Agent Kim strode through the crowd, her badge held high. "Margaret Whitmore, you're under arrest for racketeering, wire fraud, tax evasion, and conspiracy to commit murder." The words hit the room like physical blows. Michael's neighbors sat in stunned silence as handcuffs clicked around Margaret's wrists. "This is outrageous." Margaret protested. "I'm the victim here. Deputy Commissioner Chen is the criminal." Deputy Commissioner Chen, Kim announced to the crowd, has been working as a federal informant for the past 6 months. Everything he's done has been under FBI supervision and authorization. The revelation sent shockwaves through the room. Michael watched his neighbors' faces as the truth hit them. They'd been living under the thumb of a federal criminal, and the man they'd just been ready to lynch was actually an undercover hero. "That's impossible," someone called out. "Margaret's been helping our community for years." Kim smiled grimly. "Margaret Whitmore has been stealing from your community for years. She's embezzled over $2 million from HOA funds, committed wire fraud through false maintenance contracts, and used intimidation tactics to silence anyone who questioned her methods." Margaret's lawyer-trained composure finally cracked. "You can't prove any of that. Chen's investigation was illegal. Everything he gathered is inadmissible." "Actually," Kim replied, "everything Deputy Commissioner Chen gathered has been validated through independent federal investigation. We have bank records, wire transfers, recorded conversations, and video evidence of your criminal activities." "What video evidence?" Margaret demanded. Kim nodded to an agent who connected a laptop to the projector system. The screen filled with security footage from the wildlife sanctuary, showing Margaret deliberately pushing Emma toward the elephant enclosure. The collective gasp from the crowd was audible even through the surveillance equipment. Michael watched his neighbors see the truth with their own eyes. Margaret Whitmore had tried to murder a child to protect her criminal empire. "You tried to kill an 8-year-old girl," Kim said, her voice carrying through the silent room. "You pushed Emma Chen into an enclosure with a dangerous animal because her father was getting too close to exposing your crimes." Margaret's face had gone from pale to gray. That's not what happened. It was an accident. She fell. The video shows otherwise. It shows premeditated attempted murder of a federal informant's child to obstruct justice." The crowd was on their feet now, but not in support of Margaret. They were backing away from her, horrified by what they just witnessed. Parents who'd signed her petition were demanding their names be removed. 8 years, Kim continued, addressing the crowd. "For 8 years, Margaret Whitmore has been using the HOA as a front for criminal activity. She's foreclosed on families to steal their homes, manipulated maintenance contracts to embezzle funds, and destroyed the lives of anyone who opposed her." Michael's phone buzzed with a call from Agent Torres. "Chen, we're ready for you." Michael entered the community center to find his neighbor.